I didn't realize that I had started it. Alrighty. Take one.
How are you?
Good. So we were talking about this beautiful home and the history behind it. And I love the history of the is it a psychic that lived here or
He identified, they called him a medium,
a medium?
and that he didn't realize his role until he moved in, that he was contacted when he was moved in. So this was sort of a relationship that just, it wasn't that he, this was his sort of life mission. It was when he moved in here as a young man, all of a sudden, I don't know the details.
Yeah. No. I was just curious how he, I'm just curious how he figured out he was a medium.
They said that she contacted him.
Oh, I see.
So she reached out to him, and then by the end of his life, I mean, you could tell the whole house just had a buzz to it that he.
Sure.
And then at some point along the way, he became comfortable enough in his role that he would have sessions in the house, and people would come to the house and visit.
Well, the house definitely has a wonderful vibe. It's just warm. It's very nice. It's very warm and welcoming. So I can feel the buzz.
Yeah, it wasn't something. It was certainly, it's a different space than any place I've ever lived before, and everybody that has come in has made the same sort of comment, like, there's something going on here, there's an energy to it, and that it's a positive energy, that it's that it is an inviting place, it's a warm place.
How does it make you feel that it's been different from any other place you've ever lived?
Well, it's interesting because when I first realized that I needed to move and wanted to move, I went to my friends who were realtors, and we started looking at houses, and I said, look, I need to be here in Louisville for the next 8 years. I said, I want to be here, and I said, we're just looking at just houses. And they sort of rolled their eyes at me, and then the day came that we came in here, and it happened quickly. It was an estate sale. I was actually out with the realtor the night before, and his MLS dinged, and he said, well, you may be interested in this. It's open house tomorrow. They only have 6 openings. They're taking bids during the day, and the family will decide tomorrow night. I can get you in as the last showing. Okay, whatever. And we came over at 3:30 in the afternoon and walked in, and I sat down. And it's a husband-wife team, and they looked at each other, and she said, look at Kyle. And I'm like, what are y'all talking about? She's like, you walked in and sat down, you haven't moved since you got here. I said, oh, you're right, I want it. And we started talking about putting together a bid, because we had to do it immediately. And I said, well, there are houses and then there are magical places.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, houses have value that's based upon square footage. Magical places, like pieces of art, they're valued by your heart. The value of something is based upon what it is that it means to you. So they put together this bid that escalated regardless of what anyone else did. So they did that. I went off and just sat in a bar and had a piece of pizza, and they called me late that night and said, it's yours.
Wow.
And it's sort of been a whirlwind ever since. That I had just had surgery, so I couldn't walk at the time. I was on a walker, and they moved me in pretty much like they moved boxes into the house. It's like they carried me over here and put me in here. But it definitely, it had an energy to it. Everybody came in and felt it. And so I wanted, the girls and I talked about it a lot. And we just said, well, there are lots of things in this world we don't understand.
Mm.
But we can respect what it is we don't understand and honor that. And so we'll just do the best we can to honor this beautiful home. So we,
You feel that the house healed you?
it's definitely a safe place.
Mm.
And it is definitely a healing place. But it's also, and I guess it's true of any home, it's a relationship. I mean, it's not an object, it's.
Right. But you came here from, so, they literally carried you like one of the boxes.
Yeah.
And look at you now.
Yeah. When I moved in the house, we cleaned the house out. And I walked the house and did my own little ritual with sage and black salt and all I really didn't know what else to do. And then we started renovating, so it was a couple months. And we really didn't move in during that couple months. The girls they had their bedrooms sort of partitioned off, and I just lived in boxes in the basement, couch, wherever. And the day the house was actually done happened to coincide with this long retreat I went on. And I came back from the retreat, and I remember I was alone. I came in the door, and I stripped down at the door and took all my things and put them in the basement and washed them. And then I went and cleansed, washed myself. And then I went through, and I went and got a bundle of sage, and I went through the house and did a second ritual. And so it was like the first time when I bought the home, it was a cleansing.
Mm.
It was a letting it breathe out. And the second time was, I actually got to say two words that I had never said together before. And that is that I blessed it as my home. My wife and I had a home, the family, but to walk the rooms and do this blessing on it, it just lit up.
I could see that.
Yeah, it changed, and the light in it changed.
Mm.
But it is a relationship, and like all relationships, they take time.
Yes, it does. Devotion, dedication, commitment,
Communication. They so we've been trying to do a good job of just sitting, honoring the space, just giving it time.
Sure. Do you have any rituals, like morning rituals and stuff?
Yeah, I've always had them, but I, especially in these times, have relied upon them more and more. It's just a way to ground me, as I'm still in the healing process. So we have our singing bowls. We keep them by the door, and we greet the morning with them. Jupiter's the large one, and Jupiter is the first sound in the morning, the last sound at night, and clarity then comes during the day. So we always do that. We leave the rocks so that it's always lit. And so that sort of sets the sound sort of closes, opens the space.
And you have Goddess Lakshmi
Yeah.
there.
So it opens the space that then I'm allowed to fill the space. So in the morning, I do a reading, meditate on my reading, and just sit with it. And then depending on what it says to me, then I either share it in my journal, or share it with someone, share it online, share it, send it to you, send it to friends. I'll write it on the refrigerator and share it with the girls. And so it sets the day.
That's wonderful. That is beautiful. And that is a lovely ritual.
And then there are other more specific rituals. I mean, it's full of my own sort of
Right.
special objects and things.
I think it's important, though, to keep those, because those are your morning rituals. The one that you welcome the day. I think that's important.
Yeah, it's a form of prayer.
Right.
It's a way in which you recognize the blessing that you have the breath of a new day, and then at the end of that day, you give thanks.
Exactly.
That you had it, and that you in some way, release that, so that you sleep in peace. It's like you've done this, and now you let it go, and like I say, give thanks to it.
Yeah, it's wonderful. It's a way of embracing, and it embraces you.
It does. What I find fascinating is that, and we're just not, everyone has rituals in their life. They just don't really recognize what they are. But being able to, in this space, in my home, be able to say those two words and then add that my home has my rituals to it, so that I get to, they're the ones that, from wherever they come from, speak to me. They resonate in my world. And we're still sort of, once again, those grow on you, just like in a relationship. You develop rituals, right? I mean, they don't come all of a sudden. They come out of that love and devotion. And so it is very important to, and you and I've talked about this before, to honor the pace of your breath. I mean, you know that more than anyone, as you feel that breath, right? And so it puts you in a space where you have to slow down. We've all been in houses where it's just like, you can tell when you walk in, it's just like...
Right.
And at times, I mean, when the girls were little and we were all running around, I mean, the house looked like that. But this isn't that.
No. Yeah, it's more than just sitting still. It's being, the state of being. And the state of being is a state of consciousness. And when we release attachment to everything, that's being with the breath, right? And you get to that point where you even release that.
And to do that
takes great practice.
Great practice. And a sense of safety.
Yes.
Embracing of vulnerability. Yeah, I mean, it's a nakedness. So it requires this sense of trust. Obviously, underlying that, those are all honesty words.
Sure. But there's a connection to a source. That connection, it unveils, and it unveils all of that, but it also moves it all the way and becomes bigger than that. And those things don't even become important anymore. You're in the presence of this source. I call it source. In many places they have different things. They call it Krishna, they call it God, they call it Allah.
One
Whatever.
love.
One love, I call it one love. Because it is one love. But it's beautiful when you're sitting right before it. It's like a veil is just over you, and you couldn't feel safer. You couldn't feel more loved than anything you can ever imagine.
It's been incredibly important. It's taken a different role for me in these past couple years because it's a healing path too. So it serves this dual role,
Mm-hmm.
and it's that that's a different sort of journey.
It's kind of the same. It feels different, but the closer you get, the more you realize that it's actually the same. That's the unveiling. That's the aha.
Oh yes, yeah, yeah.
I'm learning a new lesson in my path. And it's funny because I constantly struggle to breathe. And I always remind myself, I am breathing. I am breathing. I'm just breathing differently now. It's taking me on a different path. I think it's interesting. I think my path is really funny.
It's funny how many of these, I mean, regardless of what it is that we're talking about, they all get back to the breath.
Yeah.
As I've studied more about PTSD, I mean the focus always comes back to, and I've been reading about this somatic experience.
Yes. The body doesn't forget.
But all of this comes back to the breath because it's until it is what grounds you. And if you only control one thing, it's the only thing you have to control.
Exactly.
If there is nothing else to worry about.
Absolutely.
And if all you do is, this is our good friend Thich Nhat Hanh, his writings.
Yeah.
I mean, everything he says.
Yes.
I mean, it's just it's the same message, right?
Yes.
That it's just one breath.
It's one breath.
That's all.
Yeah.
And that one breath provides that sort of ding of clarity. Some days easier said than done, but
Right. There are some days that it can be a little challenging, but if you can always remember that, that's what you have little reminders. Like I wear malas, I wear mala bracelets, I wear malas, and when I'm having my most difficult days, which some days are really difficult, because when the breath shortens, the fight or flight response likes to kick in, and then cause me a small panic attack, and so I have to remember. I immediately go to the malas, and as soon as they touch my hands, I remember the breath because I've practiced so many years practicing. They call it japa, right? So in japa, you just sit and you take one beat at a time, and you breathe one beat, and you're there for hours. And it's so lovely. If you've ever done japa, if it's just lovely to get lost in the transcendence. That's it's in between the bead is where you get lost.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have miles from
You can come in.
Rylan, I need to get some things for speech and debate, and I need to get it before 6 p.m. Should I just walk? I should just walk home.
oh, you can take the truck.
Okay.
I just have to have it back in an hour and pick up your sister. I don't know where the keys are, I don't have them in my hand.
That's a little cameo from Julia.
But I now wear a different sort of reminder because the bead keeps me. It's there's a sensory
Mm.
reminder as it hits my chest.
Yeah.
But all of those, I mean, once again, we're getting back to that thing about the ritual. And as you and I both know from yoga, that the ritual can just be how it is that a form is held with our body. That form then relates to the breath.
Mm-hmm. In meditation, we're taught that so in the somatic exercises, and you remember that the body does keep score. It remembers things that you can, the more you practice your breathing, for instance, in your meditation, and the more you transcend. So here's the score, and here's the transcendence. So the more you transcend, the score starts to lower. And they've done research studies on this with the brain. Travis, Dr. Frederick Travis, is a university in Iowa, consciousness, something human brain university. And so when they did the brain studies, and they did it with people who were meditating over 30 years, people that were meditating for 40 years, they were doing transcendental meditation. And then they took people in India, there was a big group of people over there, and they found the same thing over and over and over again. And what they found was that people with the PTSD, they could actually remember the incidents, or their bodies can remember, but they had less effect. So they responded less.
Mm-hmm.
Versus the other group that didn't, or I should say they were using more guided meditation, other types of meditation, still had a higher rate of response. For instance, a sensory, something would trigger the response. So they found that the transcendental meditation had less of a response. And so that's down in, I'll share that with you, that research study. And I found that fascinating. And actually, they use it now. The American Heart Association endorsed transcendental meditation for high blood pressure in the United States. And the American veteran, I forget, war veteran, I think it's called Wounded War.
Yeah, Wounded Warriors.
That's it, Wounded Warriors. They endorsed it because it helped their core group of people, especially with the PTSD situation. And that is huge. It's huge. In fact, David Lynch raised the money to make sure that it's never out, that they have it at their will at all times. That was huge huge foundation. Again, the studies are phenomenal. You'll get to see what the brain looks like, and then they show you the after, and there's lovely studies on it. But it's transcendental meditation, very easy.
Well, they teach it right over here.
Yeah.
At Passion Center.
Yeah.
What I find interesting about looking at Levine's work on somatic experiences is how he's drawn from several traditions. And in a lot of those traditions, he starts with that belly breathing.
Yes, diaphragmatic breathing. Yeah.
And usually with, that resonant noise.
Right.
And once again, because it provides.
Are you talking about the Ujjayi breathing?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay.
And it provides with, you see it instantly when you watch his interviews with these young men coming out of war zones, and you'll see the fists unclenched. You'll see, the tremor sort of stop, and it's purely in a breath movement.
Yeah. Ujjayi is powerful.
Yeah.
Not everyone can do it, but if you can do it, it's very powerful. Yeah. There's so much. There's Ujjayi. There's Kapalabhati, that's fire.
Mm-hmm.
That's a fire. There's so many. You just got to find the one that resonates with you. Yeah. I've done them all. I love them all. I love them all in different, like for instance, when I go visit ashram, there's an ashram that I love to visit in Virginia. In the mornings, their morning meditations incorporates 3 types of breathing. And the entire meditation is 90 minutes long, so it's a long meditation. But it starts off with diaphragmatic breathing, and then it goes into Kapalabhati, and then it goes into a long alternate nostril breathing.
That's what I was going to ask.
Yeah, alternate nostril breathing, and that's how it finishes. And then we meditate for the rest of the time. So you can imagine all that, and then the repetition on each one is like diaphragmatic breathing in through the nose, out, and it goes for like 5 minutes. And then we break, and then we do it again for another 5 minutes, and then we break another 5 minutes, and then we start Kapalabhati. And Kapalabhati is, fast, really fast breathing. I mean, your brain is just like, you're getting all this oxygen up into your frontal lobe, so you're just like, whoa. And again, 5 minutes, break, 5 minutes, break. So you can imagine 15, 15, 15. You've been breathing for 45 minutes.
Yeah. I had one of my early yoga teachers. Most of our practice was just a breathing practice.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen those studies since that they've now been able, in clinical studies, they've been using that breath as a way to induce similar experiences to what it is that they're seeing in the psychedelic therapies. That they're able to shut down, calm the midbrain, and you're seeing these neural pathways that light up, that are unique, that only happen in these particular environments. They're able to induce them just from breath work.
Yeah. There's a particular doctor that I liked that did that. I think his name is Golf. Did the LSD in the Echelon Institute.
Mm-hmm.
And he would do fire breath, which is Kapalabhati, and alternate nostril while they were under LSD. And that was an interesting project.
Have you been out to Esalen?
I haven't. I haven't been to Echelon. I hear great things. I've seen a lot of teachers and worked with a lot of teachers from there. Because I lived in Mexico.
Yeah, well, see, I lived not far from there when we lived on the California coast. So it was easy for us to be able to get down.
Yeah, it's a great place.
And it still is a great place.
Yeah, absolutely. The closest thing to us around here is what, Kripalu? Up in Maine?
No, isn't there? There's the place still in New York City.
In New York City, that's right. I'm confusing it for Canyon Ranch.
Yeah, no, there's still a place in...
Kripalu's up in New York.
Yeah, there's another one I'm thinking of that's in upstate, that's up in the Shawgunks. That's in the...
I'm glad they're back up, and because COVID really shook some places, it was hard for them to get back up. Oh, we'll definitely have to have a meditation session here.
Yeah, I'm.
Have you thought of that? Yeah.
Yeah, I've been thinking about the space and yeah, how versatile it is. Um, I had the cohort here.
Yeah.
We did a dinner here, and it was wonderful as sort of just a social space. But it definitely has potential as a meditation space, and to be able to do group work here. It really
Yeah.
and there is a group that I'm involved with that you know it may show up
There you go.
in our world somewhere down.
That sounds good.
Once again, you know, I right now it's just like first kiss. It really is, and it's as you asked. I mean, it is. I'm recognizing more and more as I'm gaining my balance, regaining my balance. I'm able to then be open to what it is that I can accomplish in it, how it is that, you know, it's hard to hear when your ears are ringing, right? It's hard to see when your eyes are cloudy. And as I get those back down, then all of a sudden I can feel what's in this space better. I'm fascinated these days by this, by sound, especially in this space,
Mm-hmm.
and sound therapy. All of those sort of resonance kinds of things,
Mm-hmm.
especially in a place that's just full of and surrounded by all the crystal that's in it.
The acoustics in here is amazing.
Yeah, yeah. You want to hear Jupiter?
Yeah.
She's here. He. There are nights when I've gone to bed and I've gotten up later, and I can still feel
Of course.
and hear this in the home.
Of course. Yeah.
I mean, it's still on now.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But I mean, it could be hours. You know. Especially at night. That it.
I love the sound. It's a nice bowl. I can feel it all through my body. Yeah.
The only thing I've thought about is that I wish he. And I haven't seen do it, but I wish he sat higher.
Oh,
You know, I
they
mean,
have to make like a. Someone can make that for you, like a.
mm-hmm,
You know what I'm saying?
mm-hmm, some
Yeah.
sort of bigger pedestal,
Yeah.
because you know
Larger
he's
pedestal, like something like that, just
yeah,
higher.
but higher. You know, I mean, he sits at this
Yeah.
level, and so it's hitting you in the belly.
Yeah.
But you know, if you know, if you could hold him up like this,
Mm.
and so you know, really get up into the space.
Yeah. That's really. Have you ever had it done like at your feet? You've had it
But
done at your feet,
with crystal, but not with
the bowls.
but not with the
Oh
bowls.
yeah, that's interesting.
Um,
That's for another talk. Thank you for talking with me this afternoon.
of
This was fun. Thank you.
course.